Namaste, myself Triveni Hurana, Assistant Professor, Faculty Physiotherapy and Diagnostics, JVM, Rajasthan. Today we are going to discuss about disturbance of speech and aphasia. What is aphasia? Aphasia is a communication disorder that makes it hard to use words. It can affect speech, writing, and ability to understand language. Aphasia results from damage or injury to language parts of the brain. It's more common in older adults, particularly those who have had a stroke. Aphasia gets in the way of a person's ability to communicate, but it doesn't impair intelligence. People who have aphasia may have a hard time speaking and finding the right words to complete their thoughts. They may also have problems understanding conversation, reading and comprehending written words, writing words, and using numbers. People with aphasia may also repeat words or phrases. Now, types of aphasia. There are different types of aphasia. Each can cause impairment that varies from mild to serious. Common types of aphasia include expressive aphasia, receptive aphasia, anomic aphasia, global aphasia, and primary progressive aphasia. Now, what is expressive aphasia? Expressive aphasia is also known as non-fluent aphasia. With expressive aphasia, the person knows what they want to say, yet has a hard time communicating it to others. It doesn't matter whether the person is trying to say or write what they are trying to communicate. Now, what is receptive aphasia? Receptive aphasia is also known as fluent aphasia. With receptive aphasia, the person can hear a voice or read the print but may not understand the meaning of the message. Sometimes someone with receptive aphasia takes language literally. Their own speech may be disturbed because they do not understand their own language. Now, what is anomic aphasia? With anomic aphasia, the person has a hard time finding words. This is called anomia. Because of the difficulties, the person struggles to find the right words for speaking and writing. Now, what is global aphasia? This is the most severe type of aphasia. It is often seen right after someone has a stroke. With global aphasia, the person has a hard time speaking and understanding words. In addition, the person can't read or write. With a stroke, aphasia may improve with proper therapy. Now, what is primary progressive aphasia? Primary progressive aphasia is a rare disorder where people slowly lose their ability to talk, read, write, and comprehend what they hear in conversation over a period of time. There is no treatment to reverse primary progressive aphasia. People with primary progressive aphasia are able to communicate in ways other than speech. Example, they might use gestures and may benefit from a combination of speech therapy and medications. Now, symptoms of aphasia. The main symptoms of aphasia include trouble speaking, struggling with finding the right term or word, using strange or wrong words words in conversation, trouble understanding what other people say or following conversations, writing sentences that don't make sense or trouble expressing yourself in writing, speaking in short sentences or phrases, using unrecognizable words. Aphasia may be mild or severe. With mild aphasia, the person may be able to converse yet have trouble finding the right word or understanding complex conversations. Serious aphasia makes the person less able to communicate. The person may say little and may not take part in or understand any conversation. Some people with aphasia have problems understanding what others are saying. Problems occur particularly when the person is tired or in a crowded or loud environment. Aphasia does not affect thinking skills, but the person may have problems understanding written material and a hard time with handwriting. Some people have trouble using numbers or even doing simple calculation. Now, what is the causes of aphasia? Aphasia is usually caused by a stroke or brain injury with damage to one or more parts of the brain that deal with language. According to the National Aphasia Association, about 25 to 40% of people who survive a stroke get aphasia. Aphasia may also be caused by a brain tumor, brain infection, or dementia, such as Alzheimer's disease. In some cases, aphasia is a symptom of epilepsy or other neurological disorder. Now, what is the diagnostic feature of aphasia? Usually, a doctor first diagnoses aphasia when treating a patient for a stroke, brain injury, or tumor. Using a series of neurological tests, the doctor may ask the person questions. The doctor may also issue specific commands and ask the person to name different items or objects. The results of these tests help the doctor determine if the person has aphasia. They also help find how severe the aphasia is. Now, moving towards treatment for aphasia. Treatment for someone with aphasia depends on things such as age, cause of brain injury, type of aphasia, and position or size of the brain lesion. Example: a person with aphasia may have a brain tumor that affecting the language center of the brain. Surgery to treat the brain tumor may also improve the aphasia. A person with aphasia who has had a stroke may benefit from sessions with a speech language pathologist. The therapist will meet regularly with the person to help them speak and communicate better. The therapist will also teach the person ways to communicate that don't involve speech. This will help the person compensate for language difficulties. National Stroke Association for someone with aphasia gives some tips regarding use props to help get the messages across, draw words or pictures on paper when trying to communicate, speak slowly and stay calm when talking. Carry a card to let strangers know you have aphasia and what aphasia means. If someone you know has aphasia, following tips can help you communicate better. These are: get their attention before you say something, keep eye contact, pay attention to their body language, talk what it's quiet, don't talk louder, people with aphasia hear normally, use simple words, talk slowly, use shorter sentences and repeat important words, give them time to say something, try drawing, gesture, writing or facial expressions if words aren't working. Ask them to draw, write or point if they are having trouble. Ask yes or no questions. Let them make mistakes and try. That's all about aphasia. Now, what is dysarthria? Dysarthria pertains to a category for a neurogenic speech disorder distinguished by an anomaly in the strength, speed, availability, stableness, tone or accuracy of movements necessary for breathing, phonatory, resonatory, articulatory or prosodic features of speech creation. These anomalies are the result of one or several sensory motor issues, including weakness or paralysis, incoordination, involuntary movements, immoderate, declined or inconstant muscle tone. Dysarthria can negatively impact the comprehensibility of speech, realism of speech, or both. It is necessary to be aware that intelligence can be normal in some speakers with dysarthria. Dysarthria might coexist with other neurogenic language, cognitive, and swallowing disorders. Now, what is the mechanism of injury or pathological process of dysarthria? Damage to the nervous system causes hypotonicity in the muscles that create speech sounds. This may impact the muscles in one or several of the following areas: face, lips, tongue, throat, upper respiratory tract. The neurological damage that can result in dysarthria can be from congenital, degenerative disease, demyelinating and inflammatory disease, infectious disease, neoplastic disease, other neurogenic condition, toxic or metabolic disease, trauma, vascular disease. Now, what is the incidence or prevalence of dysarthria? First, in case of stroke, it is estimated that 8 to 60% of patients with stroke present with dysarthria, and approximately 10 to 65% of patients post-traumatic brain injury have dysarthria. Estimation that dysarthria impacts approximately 70 to 100% of patients post-Parkinson's disease. Amongst 25% and 50% of patients with multiple sclerosis show with dysarthria at some stage during the continuity of their disease. Dysarthria can be seen as an initial symptom in up to 30% of patients with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, with relatively all patients developing dysarthria in later stages. Now, it is a clinical picture of dysarthria. Depending on the location of the neurological damage, different types of dysarthria have been described. First is flaccid type. It is affiliated with the condition of lower motor neuron system or muscle. Example, damage to the peripheral nervous system, hallmarked by difficulty pronouncing consonants. In case of spastic, it is affiliated with bilateral illness of upper motor neuron system. Patients may have speech issues alongside muscle weakness and abnormal reflexes. Ataxia, affiliated with conditions of the cerebellar control unit, symptoms of slurred speech and lack of coordination. In case of hypokinetic, it is affiliated with infirmity of the basal ganglia control unit such as insult caused by neurodegenerative disease, example Huntington's and Parkinson's disease. It presents as quiet breathing or monotone voice, difficulty initiating sentences, a stutter or slurred speech, struggles pronouncing consonants, rigidity or lack movements in the face and neck, swallow difficulty that can result in drooling and tremors or muscle spasm. In case of hyperkinetic, it is affiliated with ailment of the basal ganglia control unit. Symptoms include slurred or slow speech, shaky voice, shortness of breath, or fatigue while speaking, muscle spasm and tremors, involuntary twitchy or flailing movement, or atypical muscle tone. In case of unilateral upper motor neuron, it is affiliated with unilateral disorders of upper motor neuron system. In case of mixed variety bland of dysarthria type, example spastic ataxic or flaccid spastic. When undetermined, it is the observed features are in line with the dysarthria but do not clearly place into any of the identified dysarthria types. Now, diagnostic procedures of dysarthria. Physiotherapist treating patients with neurogenic type condition may assist in screening for dysarthria. This screening is not required to give a diagnosis or a specific narration of the severity and features of speech deficit affiliated with dysarthria, but rather highlights the need for additional assessment. Assessment of patient with suspected dysarthria should be performed by a speech and language therapist. Objective measures that a physiotherapist could assess and are included as a component in the non-speech examination, such as completion of a cranial nerve examination, especially cranial nerve 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, to examine facial, oral, velopharyngeal and laryngeal function and symmetry. Observation of facial neck muscle tone, both at rest and during non-speech activities. There are some outcome measures to assess dysarthria. Example, PATA and PATA-KA, PATA and PATAKA test. Patient requested to say the bisyllabi phrase PATA or PATAKA as many times as possible in a defined amount of time. Example, PATA 10 seconds and PATAKA for 15 seconds. Oral motor examination consists of diagnostic aphasic examination that includes repeated articulation of specific words and repeated motor movements marked as the total of specific categorical rulings. Now, assessment of intelligibility of dysarthric speech test involves a standardized vocabulary of speech sample from patient is recorded and then evaluated for intelligibility. Cookie theft picture description task of the Boston aphasia examination, under which patient is asked to detail the scene in a picture of a child taking a cookie. Score is given as the total of intelligibility words in a 2-minute period. Now, what is the management or intervention of dysarthria? Speech and language therapist utilizes a range of intervention in their treatment of dysarthria, inclusive of behavior and compensatory methods, conversation, partner training, counseling, and speech supplementation. Tongue and lip exercises are commonly utilized in dysarthria treatment to raise the level of tension, endurance, and power of weak muscles. These exercises, recognized as speech mechanism exercises or non-speech oromotor exercises, have long establishment in history of treatment for dysarthria. Other than this, its continued application is not supported by any strong evidence of betterment to speech and often discrepant with current experts' conjecture. Additional treatment that directly target speech production subsystems include those that impact respiration and where physiotherapists can aid in dysarthria rehab. It is postural adjustments such as sitting upright to enhance breath, support for speech, inhaling deeply, prior onset of speech vocalization, named as preparatory inhalation, use of optimal breath group when speaking. So for each breath, speak solely the number of words that can be created with ease. Use expiratory muscle strength training to develop strength of the expiratory muscles. The patient blows into a pressured device with sufficient effort to pass a preset threshold. Use inspiratory muscle strength training to develop strength of the inspiratory muscles to allow better, prolonged, and repeated inhalations. The patient uses a handheld instrument that is said to need a minimum inspiratory pressure for inspiration to continue. Use maximum vowel prolongation exercise to enhance length and volume of speech. Use controlled exhalation exercises where air is exhaled slowly over a period to improve control or exhalation for speaking. Use non-speech exercises to improve subglottal air pressure and respiratory support. Example, blowing into a water glass manometer. Respiratory muscle strength training has been demonstrated to be effective in the treatment of dysarthria.